Hello and welcome to this month's ITA Clean Sport Education webinar on a parent's role in clean sport. My name is Dion Karach and I'm a member of the education team at the ITA. And tomorrow is a special day for the sports community as the Paris 2024 Olympic Games will be officially declared open. Therefore, we wish in advance the best of luck to those attending this Games edition. To get the most out of today's webinar, we are offering translation in Arabic, French, Russian, and Spanish, asking your opinion by using the polls, and we already have two on the next slides, answering your question at the end, so you can write your questions at any time in the session through the Q&A box. And we are recording this session. And a big welcome to Malaysia, Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Australia, Argentina, and many more. So before I go any further, I am pleased to offer our thanks to our official presenting partner, Inform Sport. Those support of these webinars allows us to deliver them free of charge to the clean sport community across 5 languages. Inform Sport is a global certification program for supplements that batch test products for substances prohibited in sport. As supplement contamination continues to be one of the leading causes of inadvertent doping, we encourage athletes and athlete support personnel to check all products before use at sport.wetestyourtrust.com. As a final housekeeping point before we jump in, a kind reminder that for all our sessions, we encourage debate, interaction, and questions, but we do not tolerate any kind of aggressive behavior or abusive or racist language. So we trust you all join us in the spirit of fairness, respect, and integrity. But let's get to interactive by launching our first poll question to learn more about who we have with us today. What is your role? Are you a parent, a coach, a parent and a coach, an athlete, an educator, or other athlete support personnel? And if needed, feel free to use the chat box to tell us a bit more. Okay, so for now we have educator who is leading this poll with the coaches, followed by parents. A few of you are a parent and a coach. I'll just leave a few more seconds. Okay, let's close the poll and share the result with the audience. So it's great to see that we have a great mix of people that are joining us, and we really hope that this session will be helpful to you. But now let's go on to the next poll. So on a scale from 1 to 5, and 5 is the most important, how important do you believe parents are for clean sports? So 1, for example, least important, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So 5 is the most important. And feels the audience really think that parents are very important for clean sports, as over 65% of you selected the option 5. I'll just leave a few more seconds again. Okay, let's close the poll and share the result with the audience. So yeah, we can see 65% of you selected the last one, so option 5, And you will see that with our panelists, we hope that they will double confirm what you selected in the poll question. So we are here to guide parents joining us today on how to protect your child, their career, and their sports. This is the context we would like you to think about during our time together. We often hear about anti-doping only from a list of rules or do's and don'ts. While these are, of course, critical to know, clean sport is much more than this. It is about the development of people, the support we provide, and the values we take responsibility for promoting. So let's get into it. As a parent of an athlete, you have multiple and often unseen roles, including being the number one fan, taxi driver, nutritionist, psychologist, and many more. Alongside these, how can you support your child to develop as a clean athlete? So we hope to answer this question and more with our panelists, as they have valuable and practical experience to share. So to delve this further and understand how parents can actively promote clean sport and be protective agent against doping, I am delighted to introduce to our panelists Manfred and Benjamin Maier. So Manfred is a bobsleigh and skeleton coach, as well as Benjamin's father. Today, he will share his experiences of a parent in clean sport, as his three children are all Olympians as well. Hi, Manfred.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, Manfred, for being with us. And sitting next to you, we have your son Benjamin, who is an Olympian in bobsleigh, who represented the Austrian team in the last three Winter Olympic Games, and was recently a coach for the Austrian team at the Gangwon 2024 Youth Olympic Games. His family is composed of Olympians, and he has two brothers who also competed at the Olympic Games in skeleton. And also, if our audience attended the webinar A Coach's Role in Clean Sport, hosted in February, maybe you remember that Benny was one of our panelists. That's why we are delighted that he has come back to share his experiences from this slightly different perspective. Hi, Benny.
Hi, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you both for being with us, and also what a nice way to have both of you in the same room, because I guarantee this does not take happen all the time. So let's maybe start with you, Manfred. For my first question, uh, can you share your experience of being a parent of elite athletes?
Yeah. As a former competitive athlete and then head coach in Austria for bobsleigh and skeleton, I was very familiar with the subject of sport coaches from junior to elite, as well as the requirements of modern competitive sport. However, the role as coach of my own children and later world-class athletes presented me and my children with new challenges. We had to reorganize our traditional family division of roles. On the one hand, we trained in groups and all athletes had to be supported and treated equally. On the other hand, we had to separate the interpersonal relationships between father and son and coach and athlete in order to lay a professional foundation for competitive sport. Anyone who has ever looked after pubescent children or has them at home can imagine that this was not always without conflict.
Great, thank you very much, Manfred, for your first feedback, and based on that, maybe the question I would like to ask you now is how this, so yeah, the role you had evolved from the start to the pinnacle, or the pinnacle of their career. I guess sometimes it was more challenging, sometimes it was easier. Can you please elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah. So in the development area, so approximately the age of 8 to 14 years, where everything is still very family and training is process orientated and not results orientated, small interventions were often enough to eliminate any sensitivities. With increasing performance development and the transition to the first international competitions and onset of the puberty, I had to seek external professional help in the form of a sport psychologist, even though I'm a trained mental coach. So we have really big problems between the family, between our relationships. Yeah? So the clear division of the roles that was worked out with the psychologist helped us to focus clearly on sport and performance development again. So when I can tell you a small story, so Benji was 16 years old. He competed in his first international competition in the Euro Cup in Germany at Winterberg. It's a tricky track, so he crashed 2 times with over 120 kilometers per hour. He comes back to the coach's corner. He was screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, what's going on?" and blah, blah, blah. And when I saw him, a big boy with 100 kilo, so strong, I said, "Hey, come on, be a man. Ask for a coach or for something else, not for daddy." So from this time on, we have divided the roles. From this time on, I was the coach and not anymore the daddy or the father when we train together or when we are international on the way. So this was not easy for me because it takes till 2022 after when he retired from the sport. Then I was again in all the situations, life situations, the dad again.
No, yes, I guess yeah. Sometimes so yeah, more challenging, easier, and yeah, with the story that you shared with Benny, yeah, I guess there are many people in the audience who are yeah, in the same roles. And you mentioned something super interesting is about the external support. And here you wanted to seek sport psychologist. Maybe for you, how important was it to look for external support or help for the children, so in a way you could do your best as a parent?
Was a question to me?
Yeah, she. How important sports psychology was.
Yeah. So the sport psychology was very important for me and also for the family, because he helped us to look where is the family part, where is the sports part, and we have to divide really clear the roles. Yeah. So and this was then, so Benji goes or my kids go separately to the sport psychologist, and me, and also my wife and all my family was involved in this process. Yeah. So for me, it was really the most important thing to divide this. You can't do everything by your own.
Okay, great. Yeah, it feels that yeah, to have clear roles helped not only you, but also I guess Benny, and that's why I would like to come to you, Benny. How did your parents influence your sporting journey?
Well, I think in many ways they influenced my sporting journey. When I was growing up, we had a really big yard, and back in our garden we had every single type of ball, whether or skateboards, bikes. So we had everything we ever wanted as a kid. And it does help if you have 3 siblings, so you always have someone to play. So that was really good for me. But especially, I would say, having the access to any kind of sport that I ever wanted to try. And I mean, if you look at the sport that I was in bobsled, and I started out in skeleton, this is not really a sport where one day as a 6-year-old, you're like, oh, this is what I want to do. So it's also kind of being exposed to a variety of different sports and different, like we all were exposed also to music and what have you. But so kind of like facilitate that a broad spectrum of interests for you as a kid to choose from. And like for me, I remember as a kid, you don't really know what you want or what you want to be when you grow up. And so when I was a little kid, I always had to go to training. I know my older brother, he really liked it, and my dad really liked it. And so I thought maybe I should like it too. But so when I was 6, 7 years old, for me, sport was always a chore. I had to go there, I had to do all of that. And I remember I had a coach, and he said to my dad that he should leave me at home because I'm marmalade. I am soft and I don't have what it takes to be an athlete. But throughout the years that I quote unquote had to go to training, I eventually started realizing that I did enjoy what I was doing. And especially when you enter puberty and like you see that you build a little bit of muscles and you are faster than your classmates, it really empowers you that you have a feeling, okay, if I do that consistently, I can actually become really good at it. And so my parents always supported whatever I wanted to do, or same with my siblings. They found a way that we could get to training and try everything out.
Chris, yeah, support to do whatever you wanted to do, because you also had, where you were enjoying whatever you were wanted to do, and you were also curious, for example, to practice different sports. So then at the end you narrow it down, and the fact that your parents were very supportive. Now maybe it's a more question of how important was your father in your clean sport journey.
Well, as I said, in the sport of bobsled, at the time he was the Austrian head coach. So if I wanted to pursue that sporting career, I did not really have a choice other than to train with him in one way or another. And at first, I always describe it as a blessing and a curse. I picked and choose for me, which I thought was more soothing alongside my career. But I would say one of the most important things is learning to work hard for something, and that progress doesn't happen overnight. And this is something, especially when I was younger, like 13, 14 years old, and you're in puberty and you are not used that something takes long. Like sometimes you could even have a ruler in your hand and you could watch me grow overnight. This is how rapid your body changes. But if you want to be really good in elite sport or even anything, you have to be patient and keep showing up. And so this is something that I learned, especially from my dad, that if you want to be really good in sport, you have to keep showing up to training, you have to keep doing it. And the other thing is the work hard. At a time, I did not want to work hard. I was a kid. I want to do something that I enjoyed. And so for me, it was more like the way how he set the training up. At the time, I didn't realize it, but he modified the training, the way how the training group was set up. Everything was built in a very playful manner so that everyone will keep showing up to training, and we would do the exercises that he wanted us to do without us realizing that it was actually really hard work. And we had, if you showed up 15 times in the summer for training, you were allowed to go we did a trip to the cottage with a campfire and a barbecue. And so what I learned is that you have to work hard if you want something. Progress takes time, and that you ideally adapt it, age appropriated, so that the kid will still do the hard work, but in a way and in a fashion that is suitable for a child or a developing athlete.
Great, thank you, Benny. Yeah, super interesting what you were saying. Yeah, progress takes time. Yeah, and that your father were also super comprehensive in the way to adjust as well the workload. And maybe one question, Benny, before we go back to Manfred. When you were at home, how did you communicate when you wanted to speak as an athlete or not? Sometimes, was it hard to keep days separate?
Well, it was not hard for me. I do think it was really hard and difficult for him. For me, when I was younger, I would just start talking, and then we would talk about something personal related. And if I wanted to talk about sports, we would talk about sports. And if I wanted to talk something non-sport related, I could always go still to talk to my mom about some other things. So I really picked and choose what I wanted to talk. And then, so it was a very fluent overlap at first. But then as I started being full on in the pinnacle of my puberty, and you start being a little bit more rebellious, we realized very quickly that there is a potential challenge, because we would have an argument about training, and then it would transfer to our private life and vice versa. And so I think with what he mentioned with seeing a sports psychologist, and then what really helped was having different names. I will call him Manfred or Manny at training, and Dad at home. So it took a couple of years, but every time we got a little bit better, that both of us understood, okay, this is now a solely professional conversation that we're having, and this is just a personal and private family moment.
Mm-hmm. So super easy for you, Benny. I guess, Manfred, for you, my question, how did you manage this dual role? So being a parent and a coach at the same time?
Yeah. So after many discussions with my wife and with the involvement of a sports psychologist, we worked out a concept that was suitable for my family, but which had to be constantly evaluated and demanded a lot of from all of us. So like Benji mentioned, we have also rules at home. So during the breakfast, the dinner, the lunch, we were not allowed to talk about sports on the table. So it takes often time that we talk about this, and when my wife appears, we were all silent because we know then she is angry. So we need room for other things also except of sport. Yeah. So like Benji I said before, patience, endurance, and perseverance are often put to the test of everyone, and it takes time.
Yeah, so yeah, as you said, it takes time. So maybe any tips for those who are doing the same, so who are like both parent and a coach?
The key to the athlete must take center stage. Yeah? So trust in the coaching staff, work on goals together, and never lose sight of the long-term goals. Yeah? So top athletes are not made overnight. Behind every top athlete lie years of training and investment. Include psychological development and observe their mental state. So is your kid athlete enjoying that they are doing? Because especially young adults, this builds the foundation that they are willing to push themselves. Yeah? If they have no fun, take a break, talk with their colleagues or coaches what's happened. Or sometimes it's help to make holidays or go to another environment, yeah, for a short time. But don't bring too much pressure on kids in this time.
Great, thank you, Manfred. And we will have an interesting slide coming up. And I guess what was also interesting is the fact that behind every top athlete lie years of training and investments. And I guess this also mirrors to what you said, Benny, that yeah, progress takes time. So maybe, Benny, do you have any feedback on what your father said?
Yeah, I think for any parent involved with a kid, it always is a big challenge, because the cut between professional and family relationship is very narrow. or very blurry. And like I know how my dad will react on things that I do, and I have a pretty good idea on where he draws his lines. And I was not only in a training group with him, but also with my older brother. So within that dynamic, we had a pretty good idea on how everyone will react. And so knowing that, I would go, if we ever had an argument, I would go much more or much further in an argument, because I knew exactly how far I can go, and deep down, I know that he has, as my dad, has an obligation. He cannot kick me out. So you have a different position to go into an argument. And sometimes if you would have an argument in training, you would bring it back home and then it would keep going on. Or same if you had an argument at home or about school, you would bring it to training. And so I think to circle back is if you are, or the more clear you are about that there are different roles, and you have to learn that you're talking with your parent and with your dad, almost like two different people. The better you understand that, the easier it gets. And this is a two-way process. It's I have to learn that, and then also my dad had to help me, and he had to learn that. And so I think for us, this was the foundation for everything to work better, and then essentially to work for that long.
And interesting, because you mentioned the process and the relationship between you and your father, and when you are also a father, and your son has two Olympian as parents. Based on what you experienced with your father and with your mother, how would you support your son if he starts showing strong sport interest in the future? Would you see like some similarities, something that you would do the same or adjust as well?
Well, I think for me and probably for most parents, I want that he is doing something that makes him happy. And what my goal is to expose him to a variety of different sports as he's doing right now, but also like just show him that there's art, that there is music, and just kind of expose him to everything. Personally, I really have a strong preference that he is in one way or another involved in sport to some degree, because I think sport is a very wonderful tool to learn so many things for life that if you've never been in sports, it is really hard for you to learn that. Like if you look at teamwork, being humble, if you lose a match, like how to deal with setbacks, but then also the body awareness that you gain from sport and how to regulate emotions, especially as a kid. You don't have so many coping strategies. And if you find a tool where you can let your anger or frustration out, I think this is phenomenal in so many ways for the kid. And it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, what sport he's doing, because I think every sport offers their unique set of skills. If he ever happens to be in one sport professionally, I would try to look to be the most enthusiastic and exciting spectator there is. But ideally, I do not want to be involved in a coaching or any kind of that position. So I'd rather just watch him do something that he enjoys and support him that way, rather than being professionally involved in that process.
Yeah, it's interesting because you saw what your father did to you, but then as maybe the process, maybe you say, okay, I don't want to do this, but yeah, maybe you will do at some point. Maybe it will change. So maybe coming back to you, Manfred, it's about clean sport promotion. How did you promote clean sport, and also from your experience, how are the values in the household linked to clean sport?
Yeah, so after our coaching team had already witnessed discussions among the athletes regarding performance enhancing substances, so protein or creatine, we decided to organize an information session with a sports doctor about nutrition and the effects of using prohibited performance enhancing substances. So the kids, athletes, parents, and coaches were invited to attend the talk. The event was well attended and turned out to be a great success. In order to take part in international competitions, a license must be obtained from the International Pop and Skeleton Federation. One of the requirements for this is knowledge and acceptance of the anti-doping rules. So when they reached the age of 13, our athletes had to deal intensively with the anti-doping rules for the first time. So parents were involved in this process, because maybe you remember 15, 20 years ago, we have to write the whereabouts on a sheet of paper for 3 months in advance. And this was really a big deal for the parents, because the kids with 13, they didn't realize how important everything is. So we have to educate them, to help them in the process, to fill out everything correctly, and also to be responsible for these things.
Yeah, so you're not let's say user friendly for parents. So I
Yeah.
guess it's also a good timing then for you, Manfred. Can you talk a bit more like some practical things so that you did for clean sport? You organized the seminars that could also apply to the support all parents can provide.
Yeah. So the first thing was we have the children to sensitize to the tempting offers from friends to try 1 or 2 additional foods. So I always reminded the family doctor of the anti-doping rules when administering medications for my children. Together we resorted to other medicines if necessary. So I think you will mention afterwards the WADA list and everything where they can have a look for. Yeah? So prohibition of the use of the so-called home remedies for all my family members. So this is also a thing that the parents or Oma and Opa, they have good ideas to give them some really good house remedies, but often there are things inside they are not allowed. Yeah.
And Benny, like so what your father did in your clean sport journey, and all the support that he organized and provided to you, how actually did this reflect in your behavior, whether it is sporting or non-sporting journey?
Well, I think it all has to do a lot with understanding and growing up and maturing. Especially when I was younger, you're very naive and you see your friends and they go to the gym for 6 months and all of a sudden they look like a second Arnold Schwarzenegger, and all they took was that normal protein shake, and you start to question it, like, am I doing the wrong stuff in training? But so with like all the courses that we had, that he organized it, and also being always involved in the training process, we got an understanding what are normal goals that can naturally occur. So for example, like if you want to gain muscle mass, there is a certain amount of a couple, 2-3 kilos or whatever that you can gain per year. And so if you want to, especially in the sport of bobsled where you want to be really big, really fast, it is helping understand that in order for you to have 100 kilo, this is a process that will take 5 or 6 years, and it cannot be rushed. It can be trained properly. You can have a good nutrition, but in the end, because it is an Olympic sport, we have rules, we have regulations. And so it really helps at a very young stage in your life where you are not used to be patient, to develop that ability to be patient, to work hard for something. And by understanding and being involved into the training process, you feel a little bit more secure that you are still on the right track and right journey.
And related to behavior, maybe I'll just move a bit forward, because also maybe you've seen we have interesting question in the Q&A, and maybe it's related to behavior and maybe more broadly on identity. So research has identified that a life beyond sport appears to be a significant protective factor against doping. Like, do you have any feedback on that? Maybe I'll start with you, Manfred.
So for me, sport is for lifetime. So it's education for life. Yeah. And if you cheat in sport, so for me, you will also cheat in your normal life. So it's a lot of ethics inside in our sport, and we have to protect and help our kids to be the best performance with how do you say, with training measurements in the rules.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Benny, anything on your side?
Well, even when I was an athlete, we always had the rule in our house that for us, in order to compete, we had to finish a school or we had to learn a trade. So the option was, if you want to do sport, you have to do education. If you don't do the education, we weren't allowed to do sport. And so at the time, I thought this was crazy, because I thought, okay, well, I just want to do sport. I don't really care about education. But then as I got older and you transition in your career and you're on World Cup level or whatever, eventually you will have some kind of obstacles or setbacks, or you will have an injury. And what I realized then was, for me, this was very not easy, but an easier time, because I had my education to fall back on. I played the piano, I played guitar. So whenever I had a setback in sport and it feels like you're not going forward, or actually even it might feel like you're moving backwards, I had something different where I could shift my attention to, and then I would pursue further education, or I would just play an instrument for a couple of days. So it did help in those times when you're very vulnerable, because your whole identity is sport. It provides you with a shift of your focus, and then you still feel like you are making progress in your life in one way or another. And so I would strongly encourage every athlete and to pursue something else. It doesn't have to be education, but to have something, a second pillar next to sport, that if you feel like you are stuck, you can just shift your focus, even if it's just for a little while. So I think everyone could benefit from that.
Yeah. So Manfred, in a way, how did you encourage that? Yeah. So Benny goes on with sport and education, for example. So yeah, the encouragement of balance between sporting achievement and other goals outside of sport, for example.
Yeah. So in principle, so all parents want the best for their children and to encourage them in different areas. So children often follow or should follow their parents' interests. So early support makes sense in every area, as the best motoric learning age is often in infancy. Yeah? In our case, the interest between my wife, so she is for art, for theater, music, social unconstrained personality development, and myself. I was come from sport. I have a structure. I was a performance long-term member of the police special unit. So we're so contrary that we decide to give our children every opportunity for personal development. So they all learned, like Benjamin mentioned before, to play an instrument, performed in front of hundreds of spectators on the local theater stage. And following my influence in the direction of sport, they took part in athletics, football, weightlifting, skiing, snowboarding. In addition to numerous different balls, like Benji mentioned before, we have everything in our garden. We have a slide park for skating and slackline. So they were able to train their coordinating skills in a playful way without realizing it. So this was my background of the coaching education. So help the kids to play and learn the coordination that they not feel they do something. And of course, we were in interesting conflict, my wife and me. And we know, so my wife saw in everybody a medical staff or doctor, and I saw an Olympian. So we have to find a way, a solution. And okay, 3 of my boys go the way in the sport and education. It is possible in Austria. I saw someone question how to combine study and sport. So we have this opportunity in Austria. We have a secondary school. It starts from 14 years to 19. So you're allowed to make your sport. You can leave the school for 10, 15 weeks during your season, and you got an extra teacher to help you. And also, like Benji did, he goes in the army, and afterwards now he has 3 or 4 years get paid to make a education and can study. So, but our goal was give them the opportunity to really do what they want, yeah, and don't lose their focus, because we know after our sport, especially in pop and skeleton, it's not a sport where you can be rich. So you have to be, you have to do an education program for your professional beyond.
Mm-hmm. Benny, I guess you agree with what your father said, but maybe do you have anything you would like to add?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, I just really enjoyed that I could do and pursue whatever I wanted to. And as I mentioned, I think having like a broad foundation, especially as a young kid, really helps. And then, as you said, ultimately it'll funnel and you will end up pursuing one particular sport or something else. But it's all about having the accessibility, broad foundation, and that you enjoy what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. So that's super interesting, because we talk a lot about experiences, and enjoy what you are doing, and I guess in the audience many are thinking, yeah, but other than experiences, do we have resources? And I guess maybe I will come to you, Manfred. What clean sport resources did you use?
So we are very in a very privileged position in Austria. So sports medical examinations and performance diagnostics are offered for squad athletes, including junior athletes, and are financed by the public sector. The situation is similar with regarding to sports psychology and all preventive measures, ranging from massage, physiotherapy to training in the area of nutrition, anti-doping, etc. The cooperation and provision of educational material and training courses with the individual institutions is extremely positive, depending on the will of the federations and coaches. So we are really happy in Austria. If you want to educate and need some help, professional help, the government will help you.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Manfred. I guess we will do one last question before we will move to our live Q&A. It's what tips and advice do you have for parents for clean sports? Manfred, any tips or advice?
Yeah, the first is the education about banned performance-enhancing substances and the effects of the psyche, health, and ethics. So there are a large number of good anti-doping online seminars, most of which are offered free of charge. So if possible, involve a sports physician, nutritionist to discuss the customized performance diet that support the performance requirements for this specific sport. Yeah? Raise awareness among athletes, family doctor, and all those people who have a direct influence on the kids. So you can provide you have to provide everything that I mentioned before. That is really in a good way.
So Manfred mentioned online anti-doping resources, and for the audience, we will shortly show you some free resources that you can use. And Benny, any further tips on your side?
Well, I do think, as we talked about, is having a clear understanding of roles if you are working with your parent. Because it will, in one way or another, there will be an overlap of frustration from your sport to your family life and vice versa. And if you look at your sporting career and your personal life, chances that your private life as a father and son will be much, much longer than your professional relationship. And so I think not just for me, but for everyone, if you are clear that those are two different roles, that once you're outside of sport, it allows you to go back to a normal parent and kid relationship, to have a more natural transition and not hold on to that different dynamic of being coach, athlete / dad. And so for us, the day after I retired, I sent him a long text and I said, well, this chapter is over. And now there's no more Manfred, there's no more coach. Now it is me and Papa. And so I strongly suggest that everyone that is working with a kid that is remotely behaving like I was, to try to look to have two different relationships, because it will help also the process after sport.
Great, thank you, Benny. Thank you, Manfred, for this roundtable, also for your feedback that you shared earlier on. And I guess you have seen in the Q&A we have many questions, a very interesting one. So let's go now live to our live Q&A. I guess the first question from Lyudmila, and apologies for my pronunciation. I guess the question is to you, Benny. How did you manage to combine study and sport? I guess sometimes it was easier, sometimes it wasn't. Anything on that?
Well, the way how the system is set up in Austria, I was very fortunate. While I was an athlete, I did all my coaching education, and my dad organized it together with the local, it's not a university, but like a college. And so for me, same thing. It wasn't really like having to go to education. It was more like I'm going there and actually learning to understand my own training program. I'm having someone take his time and teach me, so I better understand what I'm doing the whole day. And so this was fairly easy because I really enjoyed going there. And then later on, when I did my master's in business, I tried to find ways, and I wrote my master thesis about leadership in bobsled, so I could interview my competitors about what they were doing and how they were leading their team. So I tried to combine my education with my sporting career, that I could get the most out of both of it at the same time. But yeah, for most of the time, it was when I was injured or when I was in a time where I did not enjoy the sport so much, I would shift my focus and move on a little bit in education. And so it did not always run as smoothly, but yeah, for me that was possible. I could do it next to do my sport. I know that there are some sports that where it's much more difficult. But I do think if you want it and if you are not stressing, and as your career progresses, you do a little bit at a time. So even if you don't finish it, once you're done with your career, you're just a little steps further to get a degree.
Right. So yeah, it's possible to combine education and sports. The next question is from Regine. I guess this will go to you, Manfred. So, but before I go, so just that you know, Regine, some NADOs they run specific workshops for parents, and there are also some specific handbook or information for parents. So and you will see also in the resources slide that we included some resources related to handbooks provided by some NADOs. So also feel free to consult the NADOs list that is available on the WADA website, where you can learn about athletes' rights and responsibilities. So hopefully this handbook can help you. But maybe Manfred, anything you would like to add, I guess, related to the resources that you used?
Yeah, the most resources you mentioned before. So on the WADA site, there's a really good online seminars. It started by national athletes, by young athletes, by international athletes. You can do online seminars. It takes 6 to 8 hours, and you have a really good overlook what's going on. And also most of the good pharmacies or doctors, when you mention my kid falls under the anti-doping rules, they can give you some support and watching in the WADA list what medicamentation is useful or not. So the small things. What we did is really every kid have to do education program in this, and also every kid in our training group have to or can come to the coaches or to the other staff to ask, is this protein, is this okay for me, do I need this, and so on. And okay, in Austria we are in a privileged situation. We bring the doctor inside, and if we have some problems with gain weight or with lose weight, we have a diet doctor on place, and it's paid from the official government. So it's really good in Austria.
Thank you, Manfred. And I guess I will go on with you with the question from Yijin, but maybe I will probably rephrase it a bit. So how do parents cope with their kids when so as athletes when they are injured or something similar?
Yeah, this is a really difficult point. I know. So Benji had a problem with his ankle, and he fall out of 6 to 8 weeks. And yeah, you go for training. Benji is at home. Yeah, what did he do? He goes outside and play with the ball. So this was really difficult, and also to say, my wife, don't let him play now. He need a recovery. He have to rest. And in this time, always we give him some other topics to do. So like, okay, now study more in the school that you can have more free afterwards. Or my Benji was easy. He was interested in reading books. So give him the what's the name?
Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings. It's a big book, yeah. So he needs 3 weeks to read this, yeah. But I know this is really a difficult topic, and if you have no control of your kids, so it's really difficult to have here the right answer.
Thank you, Manfred. I will go on directly to the next one from Frona. So if the parents are involved in aiding doping activities, I guess first of all is to mention that anti-doping rules cover a wide variety of people, and they include consequences for those assisting doping activities. So in a way, these consequences vary widely and can be also case specific. So it's also something important to mention about the principle of strict liability. And I don't know if Manfred, you would like to add any feedback on this question?
I'm not sure. So I think you as coach or as parents, you have to be the idol. Yeah? So you have to know what develops of your life. Yeah. So this is for me important to give them the athletes. So don't cheat, and yeah. So I can't give so exact answer.
But I guess if I can sum up, also related to the strict liability principle, is that if we take a situation where an athlete has been given something to take and test positive, the athlete will be responsible for will be responsible for what is found in their body. So that's also, let's going to sum up this question. And the next two questions from Maria, it is in Spanish, but hopefully I have a team helping me in with translation. Maybe the first question to you, Benny, is, so how did you balance sports, family, anti-doping responsibilities? I guess it's also something that you can follow up on that, Manfred.
What do you mean? Sorry, with how did I?
Oh, I guess it will be, this question will be more to Manfred actually. How was the balance between the sports of your children, your family, so as children, and all things related to anti-doping responsibilities?
I'm not sure that I understand correct.
Yeah, but I do think maybe to give a quick look into the family dynamic, we had the kids, we did sport, we had my dad with being in our coach, but then we had our mom, and she really was the center point that kind of navigated the ship. So if it was too much about sport, if we brought an argument back from the training home, it was my mom that would literally hit the table, and she's like, well, now it's enough. There's no more sport until 8 in the evening. And if I hear anything, you have to go to the room. And so I think it was just the whole dynamic. And even though the two of us are here, she's not getting enough of the credit in her role in this entire process.
That's great that you mentioned your mother, because the question from Ludmila again is about how does your mother live with the idea of having a son who is an athlete and a father who is the coach. At some point, did she take part in your sporting life, or as you mentioned, there were clear roles?
Well, for my mom, it was and still is really important that I do something that I enjoy. And whatever that is, it does matter to her, but she doesn't care whether I'm the most happiest burger flipper or I'm an Olympic athlete. There's not really a difference to her as long as I enjoy what I'm doing. And for me, it was really nice to have that person. So whenever I had a bad race, and I'm going back home and my dad is there, and so if I had a bad race, that means he as a coach had a bad race. And sometimes I didn't want to talk about sports. And then you come home, and then my mom couldn't care less about my results. She was just happy that I would be back home. And so she was not involved in any way actively into the sport. That was my dad's topic. But she made sure that we also have enough outside of sport. And I was in this lucky position being at home that if I wanted to talk about sports, I could go straight to my dad. If I wanted to have a conversation where no one cared whether I was at the Olympics or I was last in some development race, I could go to my mom, and then we would talk about music. So I was very fortunate to have this setup at home.
Great, and we'll just go with one last question, very short, from Stefan. It was about if you could go back in time, is there anything you would do differently, Manfred?
So thanks, Stefan. I know him. Yes. So maybe small things I would do in otherwise, because now after more than 20 years of a coach, I also developed and educated me on the psychologist and everything. But in the framework works really good, and I'm happy how it works.
I think I know Stefan. He was one of my brakemen. So if I would go back in time, if there's anything I would do different, I probably would force him to wear more fresh clothes.
Great. So yeah, hopefully, Stefan, you are listening to us. So again, Benjamin and Manfred, thank you both for being with us and your participation. And so for our audience, if your question has not been answered live, you can always reach us at education@ita.sport. So also to conclude today's session, it is not expected for parents to know everything there is to know about anti-doping. But you must understand that athletes have responsibilities and you have a role in supporting them to fulfill them. So as a parent, you have a significant influence on your children's values, which relate to clean sports. So you know where to go if you have a question or need support. This could be your country's NATO, for example, or your child's national or international federation, or other organizations such as the ITA. So I guess, what can you do after attending this session? So you can use the WADA e-learning platform Adele, for instance, and we highly recommend the e-learning course Parents of High Performance Education Program, available in different languages. And also here are some further education resources available to you to continue your clean sport education. So these include the ITA monthly webinars, the ITA Athlete Hub, and of course, you can reach out to your NADO to find out what programs they have available for you. And as mentioned earlier, the resources slide is showing you the main places if you want to have more information on what we covered today. For example, a handbook for parents provided by some NADOs. So that's wrap up for today. A big thank you again to you, Benny, to you, Manfred. We hope that you enjoyed this session.
Yes.
So just a reminder for our audience, after the webinar ends, you will receive a link to our survey alongside with the presentation slides. So we kindly ask you to take a few minutes to fill it out, as your feedback is very valuable to us. And also, if you would like to receive any updates from the ITA, please sign up using the QR code on the slide. Finally, best of luck to those attending the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, and to all of you for the rest of the year. Thank you all again, and see you soon.